Welcome to the new episode of T20 Cricket World Cup that's going on in the Middle East in October and November of 2021. In this series, we'll be covering on a daily basis the games that just happened on that day. We'll cover what happened, provide some details, and we'll take a preview of the game schedule for the following day just to figure out what's going on with every team, what their chances are to make it to the next round. We'll pinpoint some important things that happen, some fun and exciting things that happen during the day, and you will just try to make it fun. Cricket is of course, a game of passion that millions of people all over the world follow the game. We could be irrational in our love for the teams and our support for the teams, but that's absolutely fine. We're allowed to be passionate about the teams and not go by logic. Um, let's talk about what games were scheduled took place today. Group 1, West Indies versus Bangladesh, and Group 2 had Afghanistan versus Pakistan. So let's take a look at, just right before the game, let's take a look at how the situation was in Group 1. As you can see, it's a very competitive group. All six teams on paper have a chance to make it to the next round. They're very competitive on their, remember, it's T20. So any team that could have a good 2 or 3 over stretches a couple of times of the game, they could just overwhelm the other team and have and prevail. So don't write any team off. It's just about showing up and putting up the best performance. And all six teams are capable of doing that. So as we speak, before the today's games began, Australia and England were on top of the leaderboard with 4 points apiece. South Africa and Sri Lanka had one victory each, so they were both sitting at 2 points. And Bangladesh and West Indies were at the bottom of the table with no points, having played 2 games and having lost them both. So now, as we have mentioned earlier in the series, that for any team in a group of six to make it to the top two, you have to win 3 games or more. If you win 4, then you're guaranteed a spot in the next round. You're guaranteed a spot to be in the top two. If you win 3 games or more, there's a strong chance that you could make it. But again, the net run rate could become a factor, and we'll jump into that and to show you that in just a moment. And then if you win 2 games or less, not less, but 2 games. If you win 2 games, then there's a mathematical possibility, and we can just show you what that looks like. In fact, we'll work on a presentation as well, just to put some scenarios out there. Go ahead and take a look at that. But all mathematicians like to just have fun with numbers. So that's really a mathematical possibility. It doesn't happen in real time. This is what the scenario would be. For if you win 2 games or less, if you win 2 games, how would your team qualify to be on top of the to be in the top 2 teams? Look at this scenario where Team A has won all 5 of the games. So this is what you really need. If you have lost a game or 2, then this is a scenario that you want, that you need to happen. You need all 5 teams to win 2 games. And with one team has to win all 5 games in this particular scenario. And then if all 5 teams are equal on points, 4 points apiece, then the net run rate would become a factor. And then you would want your team to have the best run rate to prevail over the other 4 teams and become the second team on the board. But if you're this other scenario, which is much more likely to happen, is when one team is on top of the leaderboard with 4 victories, and there are multiple teams, 2 or more teams that have 3 points, 3 victories, or 6 points apiece. Now, the first spot is obviously decided. For the second spot, between these 3 teams, we'll be looking at the net run rate. So again, these are the possible scenarios. But let's go ahead and take a look at the events in Group 1. So must-win game for both Bangladesh and West Indies. 3 defeats would mean that you would not only you have to win the remaining 2 matches that you have, but you're looking for that very, very rare scenario where 5 teams win 2 games apiece. You really are just you're done. You're done and spoken for. So this game, crucial game for both the teams. West Indies began the game. Let's in fact bring up the scorecard for this game. And if you download the spreadsheet, we'll have all the links available to you on the spreadsheet, and go ahead and play around with it. You can do all scenarios and just have fun with it. So this is the scorecard of this game. West Indies batted first and never quite got on top of the bowling. In 12 overs, they were scoring just about 5 runs in over. Um, by the 19th over, they were at 123, so just over 6 runs, 6.5 runs in over, really looking at a subpar score. But then in the last over, Holder came in and hit two massive sixes. The last ball of the over, Pollard hit the last ball, huge six over deep square leg boundary. And then they ended up with 142, I believe, 142 in all 20 overs. So again, a decent score, competitive score, respectable score for sure, a score that any team should has a good chance of defending. And then when Bangladesh started, they were always in control. The required run rate never strayed past 8.5 runs in over, never even touched 9 runs in over, and they were in control. In 16 overs, they were at 110 for 4. Let's go ahead and bring up their scorecard. So they were in 16 overs, they were 110 for 4. That means 33 required in 4 overs. And then came Bravo to bowl a brilliant, absolutely brilliant over, just gave away 3 runs. So 30 required now in 3 overs for Bangladesh. Doable, right? Especially a team with 6 wickets in hand and good and deep batting lineup. They had a good chance. So 30 required in 3 overs. The 18th over went for 8 runs, I believe. The 19th over went for 9 runs. So ultimately, it came down to 11 required 13 required in the last over. A brilliant over by Andre Russell. On the website that we provide the link for, there you can go ahead and look at the ball by ball and see what happened in the last over. But this is really what happened. The first ball went for 2 runs. Second ball was 1 by, and then 2 runs, and then 2 runs, and then 2 runs. The last ball, a boundary was required to win the game, 3 to tie and 4 to win. And Mahmood Allah couldn't even connect with the ball. It was a dot ball. They were not able to make it happen to bring it home. West Indies won the game by 3 runs. And with this victory, they now occupied, they go slightly higher on the points table. So if you look at this, the points table now, West Indies now have one victory, so 2 points. Bangladesh is at the bottom of the table with 3 defeats and all 0 points. And as we mentioned earlier, this will have 2 more games remaining against South Africa and Australia. If they are to win both of those and other scenarios that we mentioned need to happen, then only in that case they would be able to prevail. And remember, in the scenario that we talked about, where 5 teams have to win 2 games each, and one team and only one team can win all 5. And tomorrow is England versus Australia, so one of these teams will lose, right? So, so again, things are becoming really hard for Bangladesh. Their inability to make it happen in the last over, it certainly did not go in their favor. The second game that we'll talk about today was Afghanistan versus Pakistan. Again, a very interesting, exciting game. Let's take a look at the points table before the game. Pakistan being on top of the leaderboard in Group 2 by virtue of their comprehensive victory against India. And then the game against New Zealand, it was a little closer, but still Pakistan was able to prevail at the end and won both the games. With 2 victories, they're at 4 points on top of the leaderboard. And the other team, Afghanistan, is the second on the list with just 1 game and against Scotland that they destroyed, for lack of a better word. They annihilated Scotland. First, they scored 190, put their very strong batting lineup to use, and 190 is the highest score, I believe, in this World Cup so far. And then Scotland began well. In the 4th over, they were at 28 runs. And then came on the spinners. And between Mujibur Rahman and Rashid Khan, Mujibur Rahman began with 3 wickets in an over. He went on to take 2 more wickets. Rashid Khan came in and completely they ran through the batting lineup. They lost the last 10 wickets for 32 runs. From 28 for no wicket, Scotland went on to be all out for 60 runs. they lost comprehensively. So coming off of that victory of Afghanistan, they really had a lot to prove. They had to prove that it was not a fluke, that they're really a good and strong team, which they have been over the last several years. They've been building up the team, the batting lineup, very aggressive in their batting. They've got very, very strong world level spin attack, and really a team to contend with. Even though when one looks at the Group 2 designation of the team, they look at the top tier teams, Pakistan, India, and New Zealand, and expect these three teams to be contenders for the top 2 spot. We cannot rule out Afghanistan. So they wanted to come in. And, the other thing that was really going in Afghanistan's favor is that they bet very aggressive. They are the second in the 6 hitting per ball in amongst all the test playing country and amongst all the teams in this World Cup. I believe just after West Indies. So strong batting lineup and strong bowling lineup to match that. Pakistan obviously wanted to win the game, to stay on top of the leaderboard, and to virtually to lock up a place in the next round, in the semi-final. So Afghanistan batted first. Let's go ahead and bring up the scorecard for this game as well. Afghanistan versus Pakistan. Afghanistan batted first and kept scoring at a good rate. And until the 13th over, they were scoring the runs at 6 runs and over. The problem was that they kept losing wickets. So by the 13th over, they were looking at maybe a score of 120 to 125, given that they didn't have a lot of horsepower remaining. But the last three overs is what really gave some respectability to the score. 21 runs they scored in the 18th over, 19 they scored in the 15 they scored in the 19th over. And if you look at the scorecard, if you look at the fact that they were 76 for 6 at the end of the 13th over, which means in the last 7 overs, they scored 71 runs. So scoring 10 runs and over against a very, very strong Pakistani bowling attack is not a mean task, and they were able to achieve by their very aggressive batting. And again, they put a very formidable score on the board, and they gave themselves a good chance of being able to defend that. Pakistan played as they have been in this World Cup. They've been very consistent, even though they lost Rizwan earlier on. But between Babar Azam and Fakhar Zaman, they took the score to just within 35 runs of the target. Hafiz came in, scored a quick 10. Shoaib Malik came in, scored 19. So then finally the equation was 26 to win in the last 3 overs. 26 in the last 3 overs. Again, with wickets in hand, it was very doable. And then came on Naveen. If you look at the ball by ball here, Naveen came in to bowl the 18th over, and he bowled an incredible over. A single, 2 dot balls. So remember, 26 to required in 3 overs, between 9 runs and over, and in 4 balls he's only given away 2 singles. Frustrated, the batsman Shoaib Malik was quite settled, and he gets out on the 5th ball. The last ball, no runs. So just 2 runs came off the over. So the equation then becomes 24 runs in 2 overs. Asif is now on strike. Asif Ali is, if you remember the game against New Zealand, is the one who made it happen at the end when Pakistan was slipping just a little bit behind on the net run rate, on the run rate. But he was able to, with a massive hitting, he became he has been known as the closer, and he proved himself true to the name. And the same thing happened over here. The 19th over went for 6-0, 6-0, 6-6, and Pakistan won the game. 4 sixes in an over. If you remember, some of the cricket fans would remember, this is reminiscent of what Carlos Braithwaite did against England. And I'll bring up the scorecard of that game when West Indies required in the 2016 T20 World Cup, when West Indies required 19 to win in the last over. And this is what happened. A 6er on the first ball, 6er on the second, 6er on the third, so scores tied, 1 to win. And why score 1 when you can hit a 6? So scored 4 sixes in a row, won the game, won the championship for West Indies. They're now the defending champion. And an incredible game. And So this sort of reminded us of that. Anyways, back to this World Cup. So now with this, let's take a look at the points table. Let's give this game to Pakistan so we can take a look at the revised table. So Pakistan now with 3 victories, they are at 6 points on top of the leaderboard. Afghanistan, 2 games, 1-1 and 2 points. Namibia at 2 points. India, New Zealand, and Scotland, they don't have a point. So again, Pakistan really made their position really strong. There's a very remote possibility for Pakistan to not be able to make it. But if they win one of the remaining 2 matches against Namibia and Scotland, then they're virtually guaranteed a spot in the next round. So this is where things stand. On October 29th, with these 2 games, we just saw what the leaderboard looks like. Now, what about the game schedule for tomorrow and the significance? South Africa versus Sri Lanka. Let's take a look at Group 1. Group 1, South Africa versus Sri Lanka. As you can see here, both the teams, in fact, both the games tomorrow are, oh, this is a mistake. This is Group 1. Sorry about that. So both the games are for Group 1, South Africa versus Sri Lanka and England versus Australia, which means that the first and second of the leaderboard are playing against each other, and third and fourth are playing against each other. Now, if you watch closely and compare to what we just talked about, any team that loses, it's not a must-win game, but again, the winner would have a strong advantage in the remaining matches. Remember, South Africa, if they were to win tomorrow with 2 victories, they'd only have to secure 1 more victory, and they'll be playing with Bangladesh and England, and they would have a decent chance. Sri Lanka, if they already have a victory against Bangladesh, if they lost to Australia, if they were to win against South Africa, then they'll have 1 more victory that they would need either against England or against West Indies. So again, every team, as we said earlier, has a chance to make things happen in this World Cup, and it'll be exciting few games ahead of us. So with that, we come to the end, and thanks so much for being with us. I hope you enjoyed this short episode, and please come back tomorrow. We will cover what happens in the next 2 games. And if you have any comments, any feedback, any area where we could improve our coverage, please give us your feedback, and would love to even respond to that and make any adjustments in our presentation. And again, the link to the spreadsheet would be provided down below. And go ahead and use it. As we mentioned earlier in our earlier presentations, all the games above the red line are the games that have already taken place. The ones below the red line have not taken place as yet. So this is where you get to play around. So for every game, go ahead and project a winner or a loser using the drop-down list. And then once you do this, the point table would change automatically, and then the top 2 teams, you'll be able to see whichever team you're following, how that team progresses. And also, if you look at the points table here, we're showing not just the points, how many the wins and losses, but which games they have played against, and most importantly, which games are still remaining. So if you are a team that has that needs to win the last 2 games, for example, you need to know who you're playing for the last 2 games. That's important, right? So, all right, thanks again for your time, and would love to come back and spend some more time with you tomorrow. Thanks. Bye now.